Hey, everybody. Welcome to Taught Leaders, where we help you take advantage of all the dope and valuable lessons in Not Taught, what it takes to be successful in the 21st century. I am Keenan, your host, and here with me is the main man, Anthony Iannarino. Today's Taught Leader lesson is how to be a great salesperson, how to learn to sell, not just as a profession, but as a way to increase your chances of being successful, and that matters. Before any further, Anthony, welcome, and tell everybody why that matters.
It matters a lot because here's the thing. When we get things done, when we get big things done, when we're trying to accomplish something, we're doing that with people and through other people. And that means that we have to persuade people, we have to influence people to take a certain set of actions. And almost always, no matter what you're selling a change initiative. You're trying to get something done that's not being done now. So there's a certain set of attributes and a certain set of skills that you need to get things done. And basically I'll give you some non-sales related sales talk here. So if you ever see a leader and the leader decides to enforce their will on people and say, do it because I said so, you work for me, and they're leaning on their power, they're not leaning on their influence. They decide, well, I'm just going to lean on my power. That means they're not really good at influence, and that leader is going to get stuck at some level really quick. They're going to get stuck at a very low level because they don't know how to sell people. But the whole thing about selling is to accomplish change, and to do that, you got to win hearts and minds. That's what your job is. It's to win hearts and minds and help influence people to take action that they need to take. I learned this a long time ago. I thought I never wanted to be in sales when I was fronting a hair metal band, which you can see. I'm still fronting the band, but not the hair metal part. I thought selling was something that you do to somebody. And it took a great mentor and somebody to teach me selling is something that you do for somebody and with somebody. It's all about, do you care enough to really help them make change? And that's why it's so important. If you're going to be a change agent, if you're going to make a difference, you're going to need a set of skills.
Yeah, spot on. All right, so now that our boy Anthony dropped a good foundation of what we're going to work from today, Anthony, take it to somebody who you are and why we should even give a shit about what you have to say.
Well, first off, do I even have to assume that you should give a shit about what I have to say?
That's possible.
That's possible. Here's the thing. I am a person who was a non-salesperson. I mean, I started out and the last thing in the world. In fact, I had a mentor who came to me and said, I want you to be in outside sales full time. And I swear the words that I heard coming through my ears were, I want you to become a psychotic axe murderer and go on a killing spree in the greater Los Angeles area. I mean, I was like, are you kidding me? A salesperson? I would never be that. I mean, I start from that position. And I got pushed into a job like that I didn't really want. And I found out really through his great leadership that it was something that I really had in my heart to do, to go help people get better results than they could get. And I built a company from $3 million to $45 million with 6 salespeople. I work with large sales organizations. And basically, I'll tell you what I know. I read every book on sales that came out. I called every person that wrote the book and asked them to coach me and answer my questions privately. I've tried with my own independent laboratory, and that's what you have when you're an entrepreneur. I'm figuring out sales. You got a little lab to figure it out. Does that really work or not? And I applied all these things, and I started figuring out what works, what doesn't work. And then for the last 6 or 7 years, I've been working on what works now and why, because the world changed so much. But the one thing that I'm a fundamentals guy. And the fundamentals of selling, the idea about trust and caring and being other-oriented and focusing on outcomes, these are deep truths that don't change. They're just now magnified in importance because of the environment that we live in. So you should listen to me if you want to, because you want ideas that are going to help you figure out how to play this game better. And it's going to help you produce better results now. And I'm all about actionable insights, same as you.
Okay, so Anthony didn't say he's humble. So he did a great job describing sort of his background, his thing. But Anthony is consistently listed as one of the top sales and marketing influencers. He is the CEO of his own temporary firm. He is one of the most highly sought after speakers around the world. So Anthony has positioned himself, his blog is always one of the best sales blogs out there. Constantly, this blog after blog, thesalesblog.com. We'll put it down here so you can find it. Thesalesblog.com. So Anthony knows his stuff. Okay? He knows his stuff, and that's really important. Secondly, though, reason I wanted Anthony today is Anthony has a very down-to-earth approach and understanding of baseline sales. This is where I want to go with this. You and I have talked, and we've done shows for salespeople, okay? But I don't want the show to be about salespeople today, okay? I want the show to be about the accountant who doesn't like salespeople. I want the show to be for the babysitter who doesn't think she's a salesperson. I want this show to be for the stay-at-home mom who's thinking about writing a book. I want this show to be for every person who doesn't believe they're a salesperson and sales should matter or they should be good at it. That's what I want this show to be about. And so you said something, and to kick it off, I want you to tell people, because I know you've done this several times, pick one of them, a story of a famous person or exceedingly difficult person you've gotten in front of that let you sit down and talk to them and explain how that is an example of selling.
I mean, the last time you and I had breakfast in Denver when I was there. Remember that? And I think you left before the check came so I could pick it up for you.
That's what I do.
That's not true. I went to see a guy named Ken Wilber, and Ken is one of the people I consider to be one of the smartest people in the world, maybe the smartest person in the world. His vision is so great. But Ken is 65 years old. He's got some sort of chronic fatigue syndrome. He's writing like 8 books right now. I mean, absolutely one of the most brilliant people. And I said, I want to come and I want to sit with Ken and I want to learn what he knows. And I want to ask him about 40 or 50 questions. And they said, Ken doesn't take students. And I said, I understand that. And I'm not a student. I just want to come and sit and learn from Ken. And they said, you don't understand. Ken doesn't take any students. And I said, well, listen, I am considering him a consultant for me, so I will pay him money. And they said, he doesn't want your money. And I said, okay, that's great, but he's got a charity. Tell me what charity to give it to. This is over 3 or 4 emails of me just going back and forth saying, listen, it's really important that I meet with Ken. It's going to be instrumental in my development and thinking, and I want this time. And finally, I just sent him an offer. I said, listen, I'm going to send $1,000 check to the charity. You tell me the charity. I will spend 1 hour. I'll walk in, I'll walk out at 1 hour. And they said, no, we talked to Ken. It has to be 2 hours. And I went, okay, 2 hours it is. But it's if you want something, you've got to go after it and you've got to decide what it is and you've got to be willing to ask for what you want. And this is the part for non-salespeople where they really struggle is the ask. They're embarrassed by asking. They're afraid of asking. And it all comes from your self-confidence. How do you feel about you? Do you feel like you deserve that? Like you have the right to ask for it? And you do. And so many non-salespeople who have to sell, and Jim, you know this too. I mean, when you look at it, their pricing's all over the map because they have no idea what they're really worth. They have no idea what value they create. They're petrified to talk about money. And basically, you have to go and start just getting really comfortable asking for what you want. And when you ask, especially when it's in service to someone else, it's easy for them to say yes as long as you can support it with something that makes sense to them. But you do have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And it doesn't take too long to get comfortable doing that once you start down the path.
Okay, so this is good. And I'm gonna keep trying to pull us down into the lowest common denominator because I remember who the audience is. So what I loved where you went is you just asked. But people ask all the time, right? So even if you're capable of asking, if again, I'm that accountant, I'm that single mom, I'm that babysitter, how should I look at the ask, right? How do I go about the ask to increase the probability of getting it done so I'm not annoying, so I'm not frustrating, so they don't just hang up on me? How do I do that?
The salesperson, your heart really has to be in caring. And so what that does, if you want to make this easy, before you ask
for anything. Say that again. I want you to say that loud and proud because you just brushed over that. Your what? Your heart what?
Your heart has to be in caring and giving to other people. It just does. That's what salespeople do. We help people change. So your heart has to be there. And if you're trying to create value for other people, the right thing to do is to find out what they need first and spend time letting them share with you because the ask is easier if you've already created enough value to deserve it. And that's the part where if you come in with the ask and you don't deserve the ask, and I told you the story about Ken Wilber. I said, look, if he doesn't want money, I'll give it to his charity. I'm trying to find something that he sees as valuable enough to give him the yes. So you have to start asking questions as an accountant. You have to say, what's the most important thing to you about your tax situation right now? What's the most important thing to you about the business decisions that you're trying to make? So that everything that you ask for, you can hinge on that. So you can say, listen, I'm going to ask you to spend another $295 with me this year because I want to help you with that business problem that we just talked about. And if you can get really close and care enough to find out what people's real challenges are and build an ask around that, it makes selling easier. Jim, I think we lost your video, man. And I'm standing by. He's coming back. You're back.
All right, can you hear me? All right. Sorry, everybody. Sorry for the technical difficulty. I think we kept recording, so you should be able to have heard Anthony. To the extent that you didn't, my apologies. But we'll keep going for all of you who'll be listening on iTunes and podcasts. All right, with that said then, say that again just in case it was dropped.
Sure. If you go and you care enough to find out what's important to people, if you find out what they perceive as value and how you can help them, then your ask can serve them by helping them take the next step with you. So it's really about getting close enough to discover what people want, discover why they want it, discover how you can deliver that for them. And then you build the ask around, how do we take that next step together? How do we move forward and help you get where you want to go?
Okay. So in a non-selling world, a non-sales world, I think a lot of people listening are still thinking about business, right? They're still thinking about, well, I don't get paid to sell, so I don't need to sell. Why do I care to need to know how to sell? So let's break this down. Can you share some examples? Let's talk about some examples that people aren't thinking about that would help them understand, oh, shoot. Like, I want people anchored in this idea. Oh, my gosh, I do have to be a good salesperson. So those are some areas that people, non-selling people, non-salespeople for a living, have to sell. It would be critical to being successful.
If you have children, then you have to be a great salesperson, because the last thing you want to do is use force, especially when you have teenage children, which Keenan, you don't, but you're getting close. You're getting very close, brother. It's going to be ugly, too, because they're beautiful. And you're going to have to bar the doors. So let's, if you think about your role as a parent, and we go back to talking about using force or using influence or using persuasion, the more force you try to use with your children, the more they resist you, because you're making them do something that they don't want to do. So you have to use influence and persuasion. So you have to start having a conversation that's different, and you have to get to a place where, well, I'll just give you a couple examples. So with my kids, they're all different. All your kids are going to end up being different. Even if you have 3 of them, they're all 3 very different souls. So, but when they were little, I treated them a lot in the same way. So they would want something when they were little tiny, and they would start screaming and crying and trying to get a state change out of me. And then I would just take off running. And then they would have to chase me. So they would chase me, and they'd be breathing heavy. And then pretty soon they'd start laughing, and then they'd forget why they were crying in the first place, because I had to change their state. I had to get them into another place. And if I tried to force them, and if I tried to say, stop crying, you're annoying me, that's not going to do anything except make them cry more. So I had to find a way to influence them. So the chase turns into a game. Now we're not crying anymore. Now we're playing a different game. But you have different tools that you can use to have different conversations with people. And you can have conversations that are very directive, or you can have conversations that open up a collaboration. My wife and I like very, very different vacations. She wants to go sit on a beach. I want to go see plays in New York and go to museums and go to nice restaurants. The last thing in the world I want to do is sit on a beach. So we have to have a conversation about a compromise. I'll come and spend some time at the beach. You spend some time in New York. I'll send you for an extra week with the girls because you like it. But we have to find some way to reach an agreement. And that's what selling is. It's trying to find some way to reach an agreement, which means you have to have a conversation about what's valuable to you What would be valuable for me? How could I help you with that value? And then how do we find some way to exchange that? It's in every area of your life. And if you just think through this lens, instead of trying to get what I want, what if my job was to influence other people in that direction? What if it was to care about what they need to make sure that they get it and have conversations around that? And you get a different outcome if you go into it that direction.
Want promotion. So we're talking about being successful, right? Again, we're talking about not taught, what it takes to be successful in the 21st century. And this is lesson 7 of the Top Leader here with Anthony Iannarino. So let's talk about that for a second, right? If I am not in sales, but I want a promotion, that's a sales job, right? That is an absolute sales job. A big one. I have to sell somebody on that. How about this one? How about just getting a job? When you go in and you sit down and you're in front of that hiring manager, that's a sales job. Sending your resume out is a sales job, right? How about the idea that says, I have a new idea or a new product that I want a company to adhere or to implement, or a new process I want them to implement? That is a sales job. Anytime you walk into your boss's office or someone's office and you want them to take action, that's a sales job. Is it not?
It's a sales job. I love the hiring manager. That's just the greatest sale and probably the easiest to of all. So if anybody who's listening to this, that's the easiest sale in the world. You got a person with an open head count who's looking for somebody to put in that head count. I mean, they hope to God that you're the right person. They're like, please let this next person be it so I can stop interviewing all these awful candidates. And if you're even a little bit of a salesperson, like this much, you can go in and say, so what's the most important thing that you need to find in somebody to be successful in this job? What's the most important thing that hiring manager wants? How would somebody need to behave in order to be successful in that role? And you ask about, I don't know, 7 or 8 well-placed questions like that, you're getting hired. You're getting hired because you turn the table, and rather than you taking the questions, salespeople ask questions. We don't make a lot of statements. We ask a lot of well-placed questions. This person's thought about this job and they're listening to me and they're trying to understand what I need them to do. I can hire this person. It's about that easy.
Yes. You know, it's my favorite one. I don't know how I end up getting roped to offering my time, but everybody listening, if you take this one thing away, if you suck at questions, okay, and you can't figure out anything, here's one question you ask every single hiring manager you ever meet. What are you trying to get done in this job, and how will you measure success? If that's all you ask, the rest of the entire conversation is about how you will make those goals come to fruition. I mean, it's really that simple. So I love where you're going with this. So
and that's all it's selling, right? Tell me what you're looking for. Let's figure out how to get there together.
Yes, you nailed it. So why is this so hard? Let's like sort of step back a bit. And why is it so hard for people to sell? What is the struggle?
There's 2. One, it's a mindset. So when you, like, if you look at Keenan here, he's not a good example. He's a weird guy, and he was born this way. He came out like he's ready to go. He's a brawler and a baller. And this started at what age for you? Like 1?
Yeah, probably.
Probably about 1. Okay. So that's...
Yeah, you know what, here, I was adopted, right? I never thought about this, but we'll go with the story. I was adopted in 1968 by a white family in southern Missouri, okay? So that was my first film. Like, look, if I don't get this little white couple to take me home, I'm going to be stuck in this place the rest of my goddamn life. So I better make this fail.
That's a good, best sale you ever made.
Woo, hallelujah, because I was looking at an orphanage. Because look, not a lot of people run around adopting black kids in 1968. That's a fact.
Oh, no doubt about it.
Ooh, I can see it now. Ooh, yeah, that was a sale.
He's wired though. You're very self-confident, and you were born with a lot of the self-confidence that you have, but other people weren't. So part of it's the mindset of just having the confidence and having the mindset to believe that you deserve to be able to ask for the things and ask for the opportunity to help people. That's the first challenge, is you have to believe, and you have to really, really work on, overcoming your fear of not being good enough or not being deserving. That's the first thing with non-sales people. The second thing is, and you can do these in either order, is the skill set. I just don't know how to have that conversation. I haven't said the words enough to be comfortable. And the reason that salespeople are really good with the words is we do it all the time. We're always involved in a dialogue. We're always engaged with the customer. We're always talking. And so we get to see it and feel it and get the immediate feedback when we say something, and we get to look at the person's face and see that didn't work. I mean, I'm looking at the skepticism on the face, so you get this immediate feedback, but we get trained that way as we sell. And when you're in a non-sales role, you don't get that same kind of immediate feedback because you're not engaged in it all the time. But that's the second thing. You need some language choices, and you need to think about, how do I ask for what I want? What language am I going to be comfortable with?
That's an interesting one. And I just, oddly enough, had lunch with a young woman today who saw me speak and wanted to come out. And she's a Sandler trainer. And she talked a lot about language. And look, I believe in the value of language. I'm just not a big fan of trying to teach language, because I think, for me, language is dynamic. And what I teach you today may not fit in this scenario tomorrow. So I struggle with that. But that being said, what I tell people, and share your thoughts on this, Anthony, if you can lock into a passionate belief into the benefits of what it is you're offering the other person in change. So you're not only selling a product, but if, let's say I'm trying to sell a process change in my organization, or I'm trying to sell the idea of embracing a new product in my organization, even if I don't know the language, if I can passionately connect to how that will affect them, that's the key point here. This new process will make your life easier, or save you time, or stop losing customers, or whatever it is. If you can passionately anchor in that, does that not make the process easier?
Your confidence level goes way up. The deeper your belief, the more your confidence goes up. And honestly, if your confidence is super high and you're super passionate, it's easy for people to say yes. This is one of my favorite stories. I got to go back to business to talk about this. When Jack Welch was the CEO of GE, he said literally he was writing a check to buy a business every single day. That's what he was doing. And he said he would have been a terrible entrepreneur because he would have not had this massive checkbook where any idea that he liked, he could just write a check for. And it was a tough thing. So people would come in and they'd say, well, Mr. Welch, I had this idea and I think it's really important and it's pretty good. And he'd be like, that idea is terrible. Get out of here. Why'd you even bring that idea in? It's awful. It sucks. It's horrible. Why are you wasting my time? And they would go, oh, okay. And then they would walk out. And then somebody else would come in and say, I've got this idea. It's so good. You're going to love it. We got to see it. And he goes, that idea sucks. It's terrible. Get out of here. And go, this idea is a great idea, Mr. Welch, and you need to fund it, because if we don't, then we're going to have this giant strategic problem. I'm writing the check. All we needed to see was, how deep are you in? Because if you're in all the way, then I believe that you're going to go and carry it across the line for me. If you're wishy-washy, I can't give you the money. I need to see the passion.
Great. This is great. So see the passion. And notice, I'm going to go somewhere creepy, everybody. This is good shit.
Uh-oh.
Anthony just said, how did you say? You said something, if this isn't used, something, right?
The strategic.
Now, but you didn't say you. So the thing of the words, if that person in that example, he said, look, Mr. Welch, if you don't sign this check, you won't be able to. You will lose. You will feel this way. Right? So now that's that passion that I was talking about, right? Getting people locked into the end result value to the person they're talking to. Right? That's, if you don't know language, if you can at least be locked into that passion that says, like me being on the show, Andy, if you don't come on the show, you won't get this, and you won't benefit, and you won't be able to talk to me.
That would be a terrible loss.
That's why you're here.
They don't know. I'll just pick up the phone and call you for no reason at all.
Right. So what do you think about that? That idea that when we talk, that passion for the benefit to the person we're talking to,
that's right,
can carry us forever.
If you are focused on helping somebody else, it's easy to get to yes. If you're focused on making a deal because you want the deal, then you're self-oriented instead of other-oriented. And the more self-oriented you are, the less I can trust you, because you're doing it for you and not for me. And the more you're doing it for me, the easier it is I can say yes. So one of the things in my second book, which I'm writing right now, is other orientation. When you're asking for commitments, the more other-oriented that commitment is, the better it is for you and the better it is for them. It makes it easy. I know you're trying to help me. That means I can trust you with this. But when you say, my company needs to be profitable too, you just made it about you. You just made it about you. You always have to make it about the other person.
and I don't think we can underestimate this, because I think one of the things that a lot of people have is this idea that sales is smarmy, right? That salespeople are cheesy, that salespeople are can't be trusted, that salespeople are scumbags, right? Charlatans. The reason they're that way is because they're not embracing this idea of others first, right? Other orientation, yes?
Yes. I mean, and this is Zig Ziglar, right? I mean, Ziglar, if you go search images.google.com and type in Zig Ziglar, and you're going to find one of the first things will be a picture of him saying, you can have anything in the world you want if you just help enough other people get what they want. I mean, and that's it. The only way that good things come to you is through you helping other people get the things that they want. And if you can focus that way, things come easily.
All right, so we're talking again about non-salespeople. We're talking about not taught what it takes to be successful in the 21st century that no one's teaching you, and learning how to sell and the importance of selling when it comes to success. So again, we threw out some examples, right? A business person who wants to raise money with a VC, the mother who wants to get her kids eat broccoli or start a home-based business, the accountant who wants the sales team to start putting their values into the CRM, right? Every request or change that we're putting out there is a sales job. And the better we are at doing that, we increase the probability of success, right? So let's take this a different route. As someone who's just embracing this and saying, okay, I buy it. You got me convinced. I need to learn how to sell. Where do I start? Right? I mean, like, give me tangible stuff. How do I learn to start to sell as a non-salesperson?
As a non-salesperson, give me a role. What kind of role? What do they do? Are they an entrepreneur, accountant? Who is it?
Let's go with anybody out there have something? Let's go with shoot. All right, we'll go. I always use accountant, the spouse, but they got to have a job. All right, what does the spouse do, Sean? Website developer. Excellent. Let's go to the website developer.
That is a role that is perfect because that person believes that the value that they create is in designing websites. That's what they believe. But this is the flip that you have to make. You happen to be a sales organization that does website development. And as soon as you flip those, then you start getting a very different idea of what your job is. So the first thing you have to understand about selling is that you're trying to acquire people that you can help. And we call those customers or clients. That's what we call them. I call them clients. A lot of people say customers. So the first thing you have to say is, what's that role require me to do? It requires me to get someone's attention and get them to commit to having some conversation. That's the first commitment we always need. We just need to have a conversation with people. And then I have to learn to ask really good questions. And I would tell you, if you're in any role, we can go with spouse or we can go to website developer. If you have any clients right now, you've gone through a process that you could sit down and reverse engineer what that process was. And what questions did I ask? What questions did they ask? What do they really need? How do I find out what they really need? How do I share with them some of the ideas that I have and some trade-offs? Because basically what selling boils down to, if we look at the very, very essence, it's a conversation around what value is. It's a conversation about how we get you where you need to go in the future. And it's a conversation about what do we do together to do that? And then what investment does it take? And that's all it really boils down to. So if you care enough to find really good questions, how could I help you? What does the right website look like? What are the goals of this website? Are you trying to convert people? Are you going to sell a product? What is it? What does it have to do for you? What does it mean to you? What's the right investment for you to make in your business because you're spending the money on this? And I'm just giving you some well-placed questions right now. I mean, all of these are very natural. You're already doing it. But if you formalize it a little bit to say, my job is client acquisition because I'm really in the business of serving people, website development is part of how I do it, but really part of it is applying my insight and my knowledge and my love and my caring for the work that I do and my craftsmanship. That's going to pour through. So I would tell you the first thing is start looking at just big buckets. How do I get them on the phone and get the attention? Then how do I have that dialogue? How do I present my ideas? And then how do we have a conversation about the right investment?
This was fantastic. And I love the idea where you made it sort of selling their website development services. But I'm going to take it to another level. I want you to chime in and tell me what you think, right? So I'm listening right now. My head is completely envisioning the website developer who works for an IT consulting firm who doesn't have to sell a damn thing to get business, right? So there's a great answer, but I'm not an independent developer. I just brushed you off. So if you're about to hang up or get off podcasts, don't develop who works for a big company. Because let's say you're a website developer and you have a customer or you have a client you're developing for. They've already bought it and they're moving along and they want to do something with the website that you don't think will work. And if they do it, it'll undermine the value of the site. You have to get them to not do that. You have to convince them that, look, by doing this, this will hurt you. That is a sale, yes or no? And if so, how do you use that selling environment to sell?
Here's the very best way. Can I share something with you, Jim?
Share away, baby.
So no matter who you ask that question to, when you say, can I share something with you? You've opened them up. You've just opened them wide up. You've said, okay, I'll listen. You've got them to agree to listen, which I just got Jim to do. And that's not that easy to do, by the way. So I got that commitment from them, that first commitment. And then I'm going to say, if I'm that website developer, I'm going to say something like this. I like your idea, but what worries me is that if we do this, we're going to put these two big outcomes that you said were most important to you at risk. Can I share with you why that is and what some other choices might look like? And you can say this, if you're married, listen, I'm going to give you the disclaimer right now. I've field tested this. If you go to your wife and say, can I share something with you, honey? You get 2 tries. On the 3rd try, you're going to get papers. I mean, she's going to serve you. It just doesn't work on the 3rd try. 2 tries, it's on. But with customers, you got better luck than that. You just go ahead and say, can I share something with you? And then say, what I'm worried about is this. And then, can I share with you a couple ideas where we could still get you that outcome, but we would have to change this? You're collaborating and you're opening up a dialogue. You're not dictating. You're inviting a conversation that allows you to work through it together. And I promise you, if you have the courage to just ask the question, can I share a couple ideas with you? People are going to say, sure, what are you thinking? They might get wrapped around the axle on some idea, but we need to open them up, and that tends to do it.
Yes. So people listening, if you are not in sales, you did not get this, you are in trouble. He nailed it. That is selling. And when you say, can I share something with you, it implies that you have some level of expertise or knowledge they don't. And all the, what's the word I'm looking for? Research around the brain shows that the minute we feel there's a knowledge gap, we listen. We want to know, and you've got our attention. So guys, that is and Anthony, that was straight up solid, right? That is selling. The way you handle it was brilliant. All right, so now that I start thinking and I move through, like, okay, all these chances I need to influence people, I get it. Okay, if I want to get, as a web developer, if I want to get somebody to change the design they have in their mind, if I'm the spouse and I want to go on a different vacation, right? Oh, I get it now. So where do I go from that? How do I move from these one-offs and grow my skills and really make this a part of my everyday? What tips do you have there?
I'm going to give you the first big one. The first biggest tip I can give you is that if you want people to buy whatever it is you're selling, whatever that is, you have to be a person of influence. And I'll tell you where that really starts. It's all character driven. Do you keep your commitments? Do you care about me? Are you disciplined in your follow-up? Do you listen and make sure that you understand? All of these things that are really, really intangible and soft are the reason that people buy from you. It still comes down, do I know you? Do I like you? Do I trust you? Those things are all still important. So the best thing that you can do is work on being somebody that somebody would already want to buy from and do business from. That's the first thing. Be somebody that's got the character that other people say, I want to work with them because I know what I'm getting with this person and it's great. That's the first thing. So you can do a lot of work on yourself. If you want a book on that, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is a great book to just say, who do I have to be the kind of person of influence? That's what you really want.
Start with the end in mind.
Begin with the end in mind. Be proactive. I mean, all of those are just universal lessons. Sharpen the saw. The second thing, if you want to learn more, there's a couple ways to get into it. I wouldn't recommend for a non-salesperson to go read sales-related books, except for Dan Pink, To Sell is Human. That's the kind of thing where you're going to learn something. But I would recommend that you do a lot of reading outside, because the one thing that you need, and Keenan will go with me on this, I think, part of selling is being interesting and conversational and knowing some stuff. So if you're widely read and you can connect with people because you have a lot of things that you can talk about and you've got a toolkit there, part of what we do, and I'll be interested to hear you, part of what we're doing is we're entertainers. We take people on this journey, but it's not a miserable journey to come along with us when we're selling. You're having a great time. You're like, this is cool. Look, we're talking about these ideas, or we got this vision thing, we're drawing on whiteboards. It's a great time. You can do that same thing outside of the sales world. You can be interesting enough to know things. So you can study, you can research, you can learn about what you're trying to get done so that you've got knowledge, and it makes you a better, more rounded person to do business with. And I think those are the big ones that I would start with. Be somebody worth buying from to begin with.
Yeah, okay, so shoot, chapter, shame on me. Don't be boring. I should know my own chapters by now, right? What is it? Don't be boring. Chapter 11, people. Chapter 11, not taught. Don't be boring. I talk about that in that chapter with the idea that says people are interesting. People are drawn to them. Back to the idea of you know something I don't know. You do something I can't do. You've experienced things I've never experienced, and that intrigues me. Being intriguing is a highly powerful skill set or tool or characteristic that I don't think many of us focus on. We spend so much time trying to blend in. We spend so much time trying not to be called out or to be called different. And the loss of that is that means you're not called anything interesting. You're not called good. People don't want to spend as much time with you, right? So that's a powerful aspect of that, a powerful aspect. So how do you do it? Go in.
I just remember when I was reading the early version of your book and I had to cut out all the parts that said, and don't be boring. I mean, the big headline was always wear red plaid in Pumas. And I was like, Jim, it's just, you can do that, but not everybody can do that.
Good thing you said that, because the book wouldn't have made it if the whole thing was red plaid and Pumas, man. It wouldn't have worked. So, okay, where do I want to go with this? You say, be interesting, read, right? But I think that scares people. I think being interesting scares people.
That's because as you develop and as you grow and you go through stages of development, growing up or waking up or both, you have all this pressure that basically starts right around middle school, where you're attacked for looking different or for having a different idea or for listening to a different kind of music or not coming from the right neighborhood or all these other things. We start to get judged. And this is that stage we go through where we're really conformist. And so you've got these voices. You've got the voice of society saying you're supposed to be this. You've got your peer group saying you're supposed to be this. You have your parents saying you're supposed to be this. So this little voice starts going in your head, and it's called the inner critic. And that voice really isn't your voice that you're listening to, because if it was really your voice, you couldn't be listening to it. You would be saying it. It's a voice that's this amalgamation of all these forces on the outside that's telling you you're too dumb, you're too fat, you're too ugly, you're too untalented, people are going to laugh at you, it's not going to work, you're going to fail, and that voice has nothing to do with you. So what I would recommend is you have to spend enough time recognizing that voice of your inner critic, and then you have to destroy the inner critic. I mean, you just have to get rid of it. I strangled mine with a piano wire, and I put him out. I don't have that voice anymore. I have a voice. My inner voice sounds like Stephen Covey and Anthony Robbins and Brian Tracy. I mean, that's the inner voice that's going on in front of me. It only says positive things to me all the time. And Keenan, mostly Keenan.
Come on, I mean, let's be real.
And you've got to decide that voice isn't really real, and it's just all these things that have been imposed on you. And so you really are valuable. And it's really interesting because I see there are women on this call. And whenever I work with women in business, it's shocking to me how much they undervalue themselves. It's shocking. They should be doubling their prices and tripling their prices. They're worth so much more. But it's society. It's society's role that we don't value women in that same way. And then they feel that and they think that that's true about them when it's no longer true. And in fact, they're incredible value creators and they're worth more. But it's how you feel about yourself, and it's all these things going on. You have to find a way to get that out. Meditation works great too.
That's a really big, hairy monster you threw on the table. And believe it, I normally don't do this, but I love what you gave. I think it gets people started. But I'm going to punt that because we could spend the rest of this time breaking down just how people let go of that self-sabotage, the idea, lack of sense of self, lack of self-esteem. I mean, all of that. So yes. So listen to what Anthony said and start addressing that. I want to pivot a tad bit, Anthony, because although I wanted to make sure that this was sales for non-selling people and how people can first recognize how critical sales is to their success, that sales isn't a profession but a skill. I should probably say that again. Sales is not a profession but a skill. That hasn't come up. And this is the idea of problem identification in the solving of problems. Because generally speaking, we don't change unless there's a reason to change. Now, I could flip the script, not say problem, I could say opportunity. But, without mincing words, the idea of this is in order for me to drive change and therefore have a reason to influence people, there has to be a perceived problem or missed opportunity or something. Can you break that down in layman's terms and share with people what that means and how they should go about it?
One of my favorite Anthony Robbins quotes, he said, people change for one of two reasons: inspiration or desperation, and mostly desperation. And
opportunity.
And the thing about caring about people is that you don't wait until they get to desperation. You start working on them before they get there. So you have to go in and you have to show them that the current state is untenable. And that means you can't just let it rest. And so part of being a salesperson, professionally or otherwise, is to just have the persistence to stay on target and go after your outcome and relentlessly pursue it no matter what. Be persistent because you're trying to help somebody. I'm going to use a sales example here, but I have young people who think that you should never cold call. And I try to describe this to them as, you're a lifeguard. You were a lifeguard, weren't you?
No.
You're walking you're walking down the beach and you see somebody drowning and you're like, oh, I could help them. I'm a really strong swimmer, but I don't feel like interrupting them where they are right now. I mean, they seem to be busy. Yeah, they're drowning. They're really busy. If you see somebody drowning, your job is to go and help them. So you have to go start working on them and sharing them. Listen, this is why the current state is untenable. This is where you could be, and let me show you how you might get there. And let's talk about what that you think that future state should be. But it's about that conversation. And basically, I like the word dissatisfaction. But I know there are a lot of people, like our friend Mike Kunkel, who thinks everything is about opportunity, and because it's a positive frame. But the negative frame works, the positive frame works too. But it's the current state and the future state. What's the current state? Why must I change? So the one thing that salespeople get wrong all the time is they say, Jim, I want to tell you why you should buy from me and my company. So let me start by showing you a picture of a bunch of old white guys who sit on our board. And then I'll show you a picture of our office buildings and all our locations. Then I'll show you a picture of all our logos, of all the scalps that we brought back as we've been out in the field selling. And there's not a word about the current state. It's all about why choose me. Selling starts with, why should I change? That's the first question you have to answer for the other person. Why should I change? That's the spot to start from. And when you start there, it's easy to get to what has to happen after that once we talk about what's wrong. What could be better? How do we get there?
What's wrong with the current state? I'll say it again, what's wrong with the current state? And so what you talk about here, we talked a little bit before, the idea of people feeling like they're bothering somebody and bugging somebody. Use the example of somebody drowning. It's so funny. I use a similar analogy, and it's someone driving a car and they're about to drive off a cliff. They don't see. And I said, as a salesperson, I said, as a person, if you saw that they were going to drive off the cliff and you know they didn't know, and you called them up and said, hey, you need to stop, and they called you names and hung up the fine, screw it, let them go. No, you wouldn't. You'd panic because you know they're going to die, and you recognize that they don't know it, and you're desperate to figure out, how can I get them to see what I see? Because if they did, they wouldn't drive off the cliff. So you call back and you try everything you can because you know what you know will change them for the better. And it never even dawns on you that you're bothering them.
Yeah.
Right? And so when I put it out like that, I think people start thinking, well, wait a minute. So if you can have that same understanding that what you know, like you said, you're about to drown and I'm going to save you, your future state is far better if you can just help me explain your current state to you, or help you see your current state, or have a current state conversation with me. Because if you don't know about your future state, could be devastating. Right? When I get
That's
there,
right.
I'm not bothered. Am I?
No, and you know what? People don't tend to run out of things that they want to say. They tend to be willing to talk. People don't tend to get choked up when you say, tell me what's going on. I know one sales guy who, when he goes into a sales meeting, he just says, so what are you thinking? That's his opening question. And it works brilliantly because they think they have to fill all this room. Like, well, what I was thinking about was, I was thinking about this and I was thinking about that. And they just start opening up. Because he's such a good listener, all he asks is, what are you thinking? They give the whole current state and what they think the future state should be because they're happy to hear themselves talk about it.
So we can apply that as laymen. We can apply that across whatever we do, right? Back to the web developer. So, all right, here's your website. What are you thinking? Mm-hmm. Right? Back to the mom. The kid's not eating school. What are you thinking? Right? Well, I think I don't like the way it tastes. Right? What are you thinking about playing PSP after dinner? I want to do that. Well, not if you don't eat. Okay.
This is a guy who's talking about broccoli, and I watched him make breakfast for his kids because we were chatting, and it was like some sort of French toast with powdered sugar and strawberries and all kinds of stuff. True?
Strawberries.
Strawberries.
See, I'm a good daddy. I set my girls up. They were happy, that's for sure. All right. So with that said, I'm going to open up the seat here, see if anybody would like to jump in, ask some questions. Again, everybody, we're here with Anthony Iannarino, sales expert, and we are at Taught Leaders Lesson 7, Learn How to Sell and Why Selling is Super Important to Success, and it is not a profession, it is a skill. Someone put that in there. We need a meme on that, right? Selling is not a profession, it's a skill.
It's a good meme.
All right. It is a good meme. All right. Doug, we got Doug Lehman wants to jump in. We're going to accept him here. Come on in, Dougie. Talk to us, my man. And then Charlotte Social 360, you can jump in here if you have a question. Look at Doug.
He's green screening it already.
He is. Look at that. He's got a copy you're not taught.
You know what? Hey, it's a pleasure to hear you guys, man. I'm loving what you're saying about selling from a new perspective and bringing that in, bringing value. Anthony, you touched a little bit about mentors or working with that consultant trying to get his business. Any referrals for people trying to get in sales at top of the mind that you would go to? You said simple books, but mentors out there.
Mentors. I mean, there's, if you just go through my Twitter feed, you'll find a ton of people to follow. Right. So follow Jim, follow Mark Hunter, follow Jeb Blunt, if you're getting into a leadership role, follow Dave Brock. Sure. I mean, there's a bunch of people that are worth following. Follow Joe Conrath for sure. Follow Alice Hyman. And a lot of people don't know Alice's work, but her dad was Hyman from Miller Hyman, and she did a bunch of work there, and she's as sharp as they come. I mean, I think if you want to learn, if you just read one or two things a week and just ask yourself a couple questions, how would I apply this in my work?
Yeah, and I wanted to hear
you'll get there.
I want to hear your perspective for the layman here. And I study you guys. I'm on the circuit. I get it. But somebody new to the call, like this, the premise of this show was for people who were challenged with sales and value. I get it. And I just want to appreciate both you guys for the knowledge that you drop all the time. Love your webcast, Jim. Keep doing your thing. I'm out.
Thank you, baby. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Layman. In layman's terms, holla. All right. Thank you, Doug. Really appreciate it. Anybody else have a question before we bring this to an end? Charlotte Social 360, you want to jump in, my man? Let me know. All right. So, Anthony, while we wait for another person to join us, what have we missed in this conversation? Is there anything that I didn't get us to? Is there a place I didn't lead us that you want to make sure we get on the table?
Yeah, I started this way. I want to go back. Selling isn't something that you do to somebody. It's that you're doing for somebody and with somebody. So if you think about it through that lens about who do I have to be, how do I care enough to find these things out? How do I sincerely try to help them get the result that they're not getting? That's selling. I mean, that's really what we do. And it's what you can do just in every single situation, but you really need a frame to put around it to say, if you feel like I'm doing something to somebody that I shouldn't be doing, I'm manipulating them. Like when I resisted selling, it was because I went to a car dealer, and at the time I was running a hair metal band, and I needed a van because I had this giant PA I had to take to all these gigs. And the guy said, it's $350 a month. And I went, okay, I can do that. And then I looked at the paper, and it said times 72 months. And I was like, 72 months? I'll be dead by the time I pay this thing off because I'm only like 20-something years old.
He asked you the number one question those clowns ask. What do you want your monthly payment to be?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I was a kid. I didn't know any better. I mean, I'm a kid fronting a hair metal band. And I said, 72 months, I can't even imagine paying for anything for 7 years. I mean, that's crazy to me, And he blocked the door with his arms, and he said, you're not leaving here without taking that van with you. And I said, are you kidding me? I'm going to have to fight my way out of the car dealership? I said, seriously, give me my keys. I'll never buy anything from you. And he was trying to take advantage of me. And so that was my experience. That's not what most people in sales do. It's really funny. I teach personal selling at Capital University here in Columbus, Ohio. And whenever I teach that class, I ask everybody to tell me what they think salespeople are. And they go manipulative, persuasive, pushy, selfish, assholes. I mean, they'll go on with the whole thing, and I'll write them all on the board. And then I'll say, raise your hand if one of your parents sells. And about 60% of the hands go up. And I'm like, so your mom is a pushy, selfish asshole? And they're like, no, I love my mom. My mom's one of the greatest people. Her clients love her. She talks to them all the time. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I thought you just told me that selling was all these things. Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, not my mom, though. And I'm like, yeah, not my mom either. I get it. It's a shift. Are you trying to do something for people or to people?
That was awesome. Made me laugh out loud. That was fantastic. All right, so everybody listen up. Are you doing something for people or to people? I think it's a phenomenal mindset. You can start there. You're a winner. One other thing I want to add, and then I want you to close out on what I'm adding here, because you referenced it earlier and indirectly, I don't think you realized it. In addition to working or doing something for somebody as opposed to doing something to somebody, not everybody sees things the way you do at the rate you would like them to. Example, Ken, right? He didn't see it right away. So you had to persevere. And I think that's the other part of this, that shame on me that we didn't get to this a little earlier. How do we persevere? How do you add that drive to keep going without tipping into it's about me now? Because I see some really good salespeople who really believe in their heart of hearts they're helping the person, but if the person can't see it, they get desperate or frustrated and they tip. So how do we maintain this integrity that you described, but still drive? Because not everybody's going to see it at the rate we want them to.
I say this all the time. So in selling and in all things human relationships, fast is slow and slow is fast. So the faster I try to convince you that you need to do something, the longer it's going to take me to do it. And the slower I go, because I want to make sure I understand all your concerns and we have all the conversations you need to have, the faster I can get you there. So the thing about being professionally persistent and not being a nuisance is to have a plan that says, I'm going to play the longest game on earth. And I love this. I heard Harvey McKay say this in a speech once in Florida. He said he just got a job selling. It was his first sales job. And he went to this old grizzled veteran sales guy, right? And he said, when do you give up on somebody and just move on to something else? And McKay said, they die or you die. That's what the vet said to him. He said, they die or you die. That's the only time you give up. You just keep going. But you have to be professionally persistent and say, I don't have to get this for them now. I just have to get it for them. And if I say the clock doesn't stop because they said no, we're still playing a game. It's like a football play. When the play's over, the game's not over. There's still lots of time on the clock. So play a long, long game and be professionally persistent and always try to continue to have a conversation around value. Always try to have a conversation about what does the future look like? How do we get you there? What's the next step? What do you need from me to feel comfortable going forward with that?
All right. I love that. That was fantastic. Play long. You actually made me think about email I just got from somebody who is about to drive off a cliff, and they think they need, using the metaphor in the cheesiest of ways, they think they need air in the tires. And no, they need to start pumping the brakes. No matter how many times I tell them to start pumping the brakes, they're like, no, I brakes are fine. I got them checked back. I'm like, but you're heading to the cliff and you're not hearing me. So and I had some other people part of the sales process, and people telling me, hey, you need to pump your brakes, and they want to hear it. So my natural reaction was to be like, all right, fine, let them drive off the cliff. And listening to you brought me back to some things I'd forgotten. I just basically need to make a note, using the metaphor as cheesy as I can drag it out, to as she gets closer to that cliff, to make sure that I'm there. So you see, when she starts seeing it, say, remember we talked about, right? So you've altered my behavior. I got something out of my own podcast today. I got to respond to someone that I wasn't going to respond to. So well done, my man.
Like this.
Well,
can I share something with you?
No. All right, everybody. I want to thank you very much. Anthony, you are the man. I really appreciate it. It's a great show. I hope everybody walks away with this recognizing that selling is not a profession. It is a skill, and your success in the 21st century is highly dependent on your ability to build that skill. So with that said, thank you, everybody. If you're listening to this on iTunes, please rate us, review us, tell us what you think. If you're liking this on YouTube, please leave some comments, subscribe, and boy, we get it everywhere. You're going to find us everywhere. But until next time, this is Keenan, Not Taught, What It Takes to Be Successful in the 21st Century, Top Leaders, Lesson 7 with the one and only Anthony Iannarino. Learn how to sell. Until next time, y'all, peace. I'm out.